As we know, Count Dooku reveals to Obi-Wan Kenobi in Attack of the Clones that the Republic was under the influence of a Sith Lord. Even Mace Windu said that the dark side surrounds Palpatine. But what exactly did he mean by this? Did they suspect Palpatine of being a Sith Lord? While many Jedi did not fully trust Palpatine, and as the war progressed their trust in him only diminished, none of them ever truly believed that Palpatine was a Sith Lord. But even though the dark side was everywhere that Palpatine was, why did the Jedi never act on it, and why were they even a little surprised when it was revealed that Palpatine was indeed a Sith Lord? They even thought it was impossible for him to be a Sith. Despite knowing the Chancellor for many years, and even being in the same room as him for countless times, how did the Jedi never imagine him as a Sith? One of the reasons was because Palpatine was a master at Force Cloak. He was so powerful in this, they could bury the darkness inside of him so much that was undetectable from even the strongest of Jedi, and made them believe that he had no Force sensitivity, even if the Jedi couldn't feel him through the Force. It was stated by Count Dooku that the Republic was under the control of a Sith Lord, and that Sith Lord was not him. This fact, however, would quickly be ignored by the Jedi, who thought this was all just an illusion by Count Dooku to get in their heads and mess with them. But while many considered this a dumb decision, this actually had some logic behind it. From their point of view, this was the perfect opportunity for Dooku to mess with him. He already was a master of Dune Mox, which consisted of throwing insults at the opponent to weaken them mentally. But if used in its full force, it could completely seemingly disconnect the user from the Force. Even before the Clone Wars, Dooku tried warning the Jedi by hinting that Palpatine might be a Sith Lord, but to no avail. The Jedi themselves also did not help it, but in fact made it much worse by not letting any investigations about Palpatine gain any traction. But as shocking as it is, shortly before the Clone Wars, the Jedi were starting to get close on understanding who the Sith Lord was. And as more and more evidence piled up, they started to reconsider what Dooku had told them, and they even got as far as to find out that the Sith Lord was indeed in their midst. And towards the end of the Clone Wars, the Jedi were very close to finding out who the Sith Lord truly was. And this text from the novelization of Revenge of the Sith truly just showed how close they were. Mace Windu actually shared with Obi-Wan Kenobi their suspicions about Palpatine and the Sith. He stated, "We have circumstantial evidence that traces Sidious back to Palpatine's inner circle." And once Mace shares this with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Obi-Wan asks Mace if he is certain. And Mace responds with, "Nothing is certain, but this raid, the capture of Palpatine has to be an inside job, and the timing. We were closing in on Sidious. Master Kenobi, we traced the Sith Lord back to an abandoned factory in the works, not far from where Anakin landed the cruiser. When the attack on Coruscant began, we were tracking through down-level tunnels. The trail led to the sub-level basement of the 500 Republica, which for those of you who don't know, the 500 Republica was a very shifty place because the people who lived there were the most wealthy people in the galaxy and also were very high-ranking officials, which obviously was Palpatine." But when Obi-Wan asked if they have any suspects, Mace replied with, "Too many suspects. All we know of Sidious is that he's bipedal of roughly human conformation. State Prestige comes to mind, and I wouldn't rule out Malsameda either. The Sith Lord might even be hiding it amidst the Red Guards. No way to know who Sidious is." And when Obi-Wan asks for more detail, Mace tells him that Palpatine's not allowing the Jedi to question anyone in the office, and goes on to say that Palpatine barely even believes that the Sith even exist, and they can't really question any of the Sith Lords either, because Count Dooku is dead and Maul is on Mandalore. This is when Obi-Wan Kenobi questions if Palpatine even has the authority to do that, but then it is finally revealed why the Jedi don't suspect Palpatine of being a Sith Lord. Mace Windu states, "The Senate has surrendered so much power, it is hard to say where his authority stops. The only reason Palpatine is not a suspect is because he already rules the galaxy." This is very interesting because all the evidence points towards Palpatine being a Sith Lord, and yet they believed it was everybody except him. But then again, they did have reason to believe Palpatine's inner circle was possibly connected to the Sith, because the people who Palpatine surrounded himself with were not the type of people who were very nice. The Jedi thought it would most likely be State Prestige or Malsameda. More likely Malsameda because he rarely left Palpatine's side and took over for him when needed. He also almost had unlimited resources. Since he was always around Palpatine, the Jedi suspected that maybe, just maybe, Palpatine was under the influence of the Sith Lord without even realizing it. From the Jedi's point of view, Palpatine was nothing more than a greedy and hungry politician who might have been under the influence of the Sith. The Jedi stated that, yes, he is a crooked politician, but he is not so evil that he is a Sith Lord, or he would be an accomplice to one. This really shows how blinded the Jedi had become that they couldn't even see what was right in front of them. All the evidence pointed to Palpatine being a Sith Lord, and yet they never suspected a thing. But anyway, that is the reason the Jedi thought it was impossible for Palpatine to be a Sith Lord. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like and subscribe. And with that, my fellow Star Wars nerds, may the Force be with you.